Hey fellas, how's it going? Here we are again, it's always such a pleasure. 2023 is come and gone, and this video is almost 2 months late. That's not really much of a surprise for me, but last year sure was a year for wrestling, huh? My god, so much shit happened, and it looks like it's not even close to slowing down. 2024 is already somehow more insane than last year. Speaking of, I didn't actually watch as much wrestling last year. A pretty stark contrast to 2022, which was my favorite year of watching wrestling ever. In fact, over the past 3 months, I've been on kind of a wrestling sabbatical. But that said, I still watched a lot of it, especially in the first half of the year. More than enough to fill this list out. So once again, without any further ado, hi, I'm Aiden, and these are my 5 favorite wrestling things of 2023.
Favorite entrance.
Kenny Omega, Wrestle Kingdom 17. So last year, I claimed that Go Shiozaki's entrance at Cyberfight Festival was the greatest entrance in pro wrestling history. I think as an overall entrance, I'd still say Shiozaki's was better, but thematically, I think this beats it. I was watching Wrestle Kingdom with a bunch of my friends over voice chat, and I am so incredibly mad the footage corrupted because all of us marked the fuck out when we heard the iconic intro of One Winged Angel. It's just perfect production from the New Japan team. The camera focusing on the Omega and revealing him standing in the middle of the stage before he throws his arm out to summon the wing, before the camera comes back to the best bout machine and the grin on his face as the stage turns to fire and the chorus kicks in. Needless to say, the Sephiroth cosplay is also perfect. Omega Ospreay was one of the best feuds of the year, and Kenny coming in dressed as a literal final boss made him feel unconquerable. Ospreay bringing back Elevated as his anime power-up song was hype, but it was never going to be enough against the cleaner. Absolute perfection. I'm gonna go and rewatch it again. Honorable mentions go to Bullet Club Gold at All Out, Christian Cage at Full Gear, and Keiji Muto's final entrance at Keiji Muto Grand Final, which is also wrestling perfection. If I had more of a connection to Muto, this would be number 1 without question.
Favorite promo.
And I finally get the call about 6 weeks ago. Congratulations. You're finally in the G1. You're welcome. Like you're doing me a fucking favor. Fuck this. And fuck you.
Alex Coughlin, G1 Climax 33 press conference. This year's G1 press conference was phenomenal, one of the most underrated nights of the year. It almost felt like a spoof of pro wrestling at points, with El Phantasmo, Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., Toru Yano, and Shane Haste being there, and all of them being hysterical. But looming over the conference were the Bullet Club War Dogs, a group where every member is fantastic, except for their leader.
Fuck David Finlay!
Earlier in the night, Gabe Kidd started a brawl with Yota Tsuji, and it was great. I thought the conference was going to peak there, and then the Deadeye Dreadnought entered the stage. Alex cut a star-making promo here, an incredible, rage-filled, emotional look into the life of a professional wrestler training during COVID and his relationship with management. A lot of work-shoot promos come across as way too tongue-in-cheek, or like they're just trying to spur unnecessary discourse for Marks to scream about on Twitter for a day, bidding more of 2024 bullshit. But when these promos work, when you actually lean into the character's real life for a substantial reason and let them build that into their character, you get the realest feeling people in any medium. Coughlin listing off all the relatives he had lost while training, constantly justifying to himself that it would be worth it, the missed birthdays, the missed funerals, everything, only to pull out his phone and read out a message from New Japan management in response to him wanting to send some merch to his family.
The response I got was, "Hey Alex, we're limiting the comps of the shirts to the wrestler only right now. Sorry." This is my favorite part. "If it helps, the shirt is part of the Halloween sale going on right now." It's all fucking worth it, right?
This broke my heart and made my blood boil. By the end of the promo, you really can't help but want to root for the guy. You could feel his anger and his lost passion for this great sport, and you understand more than anything why he is lashing out like this. Not just the greatest promo of the year, but one of the greatest promos ever. Go and watch it if you haven't. Honorable mentions go to Bryan Danielson after Revolution, Christian Cage dismissing his own friggin' daughter, Eddie Kingston before World's End, Will Ospreay at the Wrestle Kingdom 17 press conference, and El Phantasmo's babyface promo of the year. More than anything wrestling related this year, this made me bawl my eyes out.
Favorite pay-per-view.
It's Sunday. You know what that means? AEW Revolution is coming to you live.
AEW Revolution. Man, I miss AEW. I really, really do. One of the best put together cards they've ever done, and almost every single match lived up to the hype. This is the company I love firing on all cylinders. I'm going to be brief about the pay-per-view here because for the next two entries, I'm going to be going very in-depth about it. Ricky Starks vs Chris Jericho in hindsight now is crazy to look back on. Ricky is on the verge of leaving, and Jericho is hated, for good reason. But this match is underrated. Not a classic, but a great opener that gets the crowd pumped, and that crowd never ever calms down. To one underrated, to what I'd call one of the most underrated of the year, Jack Perry vs Christian Cage is the best buried alive, final burial match of all time. Incredible cap to their feud with a legitimately emotional ending. House of Black vs The Elite was the second best trios match of the year. Seriously, watch it again, it's everything I could have possibly wanted from these six. Jamie Hayter vs The Outcast was passable. As Saraya in it, so I'm surprised it wasn't garbage. But man, I just really miss Jamie Hayter. As always, she hits hard in this match, and that symphony is enough to carry it to at least being a good time. Mox vs Hangman! I will get to this later. Joe vs Wardlow wasn't great, probably the only thing on the card I call mediocre. Man, Wardlow really wasn't great at this time, was he? The Ford's Corners tag match is crazy chaotic fun. I love this match, but I mentioned that the crowd never comes down, and that was a lie. When the Guns won this match, you could hear a pin drop. Without this, I don't think they'd be on the fantastic run they're on now. Was it worth it? Debatable. Finally, there's that main event. I will get to it in a moment. The fact that I'm saving two matches of the show for the separate best of the year categories should be a testament to its quality. Revolution is one of the most well-placed, most consistently fun, best-looking pay-per-views of all time. Watch it again. Honorable mentions go to AEW Wrestle Dream, TJPW Grand Princess, and Stardom All-Star Grand Queendom.
Favorite wrestler.
Well, there you go. I say, how about it? It's a pretty big gauntlet to throw down. It's pretty simple.
Bryan Danielson. Fuck, Wrestler of the Year was hard this year. For the past 3 years, it's been Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley, with the competition in a relatively distant second place. This year was like a 4-way toss-up on that any given day I could just change my mind. I could rewatch this video a month later and think, fuck, I should have given it to Ospreay or Athena. But today is not that day, and in the end, I chose the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. This is Danielson's last ever year as a full-time professional wrestler, and god damn, he did do everything he could to make the most of it. Look at this fucking cage match, dude. 26 matches rated as an overall 8 or more by the community. That's insane. The year started off fantastically with this feud against MJF. While this build honestly kind of sucked until the hi buddy promo, it was just another MJF makes his opponent jump through a stupid amount of hoops to fight him feud. Those hoops included matches against Konosuke Takeshita, Bandito, and Roosh. 3 of the best TV matches I have ever seen. Just banger after banger. That Roosh one especially was absolutely insane. Go watch it again, it's the second best TV match this year. Rest well, El Toro Blanco. Hope that injury isn't too bad. Once Danielson made it through all those hoops, it culminated in probably the best pay-per-view main event AEW has ever had. Bryan Danielson vs MJF in a 60-minute Iron Man match. A marathon of the match with some of the most iconic shots in modern pro wrestling. The 7 minutes of overtime this match got into is just professional wrestling perfection. Danielson starting a yes chant for the first time since leaving WWE had me actually believing this was his time, that he was finally going to win the AEW World Championship. Top 3 kick out of the year. MJF is giving one of the highest honors in wrestling, making the American Dragon tap out, cementing him as the man. After the match against Max, Bryan went off screen for a bit for storyline and real life reasons, cutting a promo on the Dynamite after Revolution that made me cry. It still makes me tear up. He would return 2 months later and enter into the ongoing feud the Blackpool Combat Club had with the Elite. He would unfortunately only wrestle 1 match in this feud, mainly due to injuries he was recuperating from, but that match was pretty great. The Anarchy in the Arena match wasn't even close to the lightning in the bottle magic that last year's one was, but that exploding super kick spot was up there on spots in the year. Holy fuck, look at that. And then a week later, on June 5th, Bryan Danielson challenged Kazuchika Okada for a match at Forbidden Door 2. This was my single most anticipated match of all time. Two of the absolute greatest of all time, the faces of their respective regions, facing off in one of the most sought-after dream matches of all time. I still can't believe it even happened 7 months later. And it was really underwhelming. It wasn't bad per se, but wasn't even a fraction as good as I imagined it to be. It was really slow-paced and pretty boring at points. I love technical wrestling, as a certain other dream match he had this year I will rant about in a bit will testify, but this was a different case. Danielson broke his arm mid-match, and that made it so the match unfortunately never really hit its third or even second gear. Somehow it made Okada tapping out for the first time in half a decade anticlimactic. Thank God that Wrestle Kingdom match happened, it was way better. Bryan once again left TV for a while after this to recover from the aforementioned arm break and other injuries, and a lot of people, including myself, thought that was it for the year of Danielson. But for his last active year of wrestling, it could never ever end like that. If the American Dragon is one thing, it is fucking stubborn. And of course, he returned with another goddamn match of the year candidate, in a strap match against Ricky Starks. My expectations were high for this match at all. I was expecting an 8 out of 10 enjoyable match, not a 10 out of 10 match of violence this high. A barbaric encounter and a star-making performance for absolute Ricky Starks. That final submission is something else. From then on, Danielson never stops never stopping, pushing harder and harder to make his final year his possible greatest ever. After finishing his feud with Starks, by the way, their Texas Death match, while not being even close to as good and honestly quite unnecessary, it's more what I expected the strap match to be actually, is still underrated and worth a rewatch, he would move into the other New Japan Dream Match fans have been wanting for almost a decade, Zack Sabre Jr. Holy fuck, this match. This match is a fucking daggers, mate. The greatest technical match of all time, by the two greatest technical wrestlers of all time, with the greatest guest commentary performance of all time, courtesy of my favorite wrestler of all time. This match is art! The two men trade submissions flawlessly across the mat for 25 minutes, and it's glorious. Zack Sabre Jr. was the most underrated wrestler of this entire year, but if you're gonna have one match stick in people's mind, this is the best possible one. I have watched this match too many times. It is art, and the perfect ending of Danielson knowing he can't beat Zack on the mat, so he uses a strike to set up perfectly for a rematch, which is this month. Oh my god! Hey, editing Aiden here. So I was very slow making this video, and that match has already happened. It was just as good, if not better. Part of me prefers the first one because it was actually on my birthday, I forgot to mention that, and also Mox's commentary performance was that good, but as a match, yeah, it was better. Go and watch it. The only thing that I could have asked for in this match is that Bryan entered to the final countdown. I really love the strap match, but if you could only use it twice for here, it should have been saved for here. And somehow, Danielson's year does not peak there with the announcement of the Continental Classic. Every single match Bryan had was a match of the tournament contender. That time limit draw against Claudio, chef's kiss, dude. And there was another match of the year contender spliced in between at Final Battle. Watch this again, please. Best Trios match of the year. His year ended perfectly with the semi-final match against Eddie Kingston. It was legit too good as the tournament peaked here. I loved the final against Moxley, but Eddie finally slaying the Dragon on his third and most important try in a King's Road style match was the peak of his redemption arc. Another match with Danielson in it that made me cry. He's really good at doing that. The American Dragon is a special talent. A dream match machine, one of the most consistent, funniest, kindest, committed, and violent talents in the history of the business. I've already mentioned this, but this is his last active year of wrestling, and he fucking wrestled like every match was his last. Bryan Danielson is going to be sorely missed when he retires. Audible mentions go to Athena, who made herself the ace of her brand, Orange Cassidy, who had one of the greatest mid-card title runs of all time, John Moxley for being John fucking Moxley, Rika Tatsumi, who probably had the best body of work women's-wise this year that I saw. Zack Sabre Jr. is the most underrated wrestler of the year, who had a phenomenal run as the first ever New Japan Pro Wrestling TV champion. Chris Brooks, who had the best top title reign of the year. And Will Ospreay, who had the best summer I've seen in a wrestler ever. 5 fucking match of the year candidates in 3 months. Jesus Christ.
Favorite match.
I take away your pride in blood and violence when at the end of the throes of war, I, not you, I am the man left standing. And you're right, I'm not the same kind of animal as you. I don't enjoy violence, I hate it. I hate it to its core. But this Sunday, I will be the most violent and bloodthirsty son of a bitch that you have ever seen. Not in spite of that, but because of it. Because that is who I know I will have to be to beat you. And beating you is the last glimmer of hope that I do have. This is Texas death. And there's only two ways out. Either you live or you die. And I ain't done living.
Hangman Adam Page versus Jon Moxley. Look, I know I already spoiled this was my pick of Revolution, but this was the best Texas death match of all time. Fight me! The perfect capstone to the best feud of 2023. MJF versus Danielson may have been the greatest main event AEW has ever put on, but in my opinion, this is the greatest match they've ever put on. Hangman Adam Page is one of the best big match performers in the world, and Jon Moxley is the ace of the world. Put them together in this stipulation and you have a recipe for perfect, believable, professional wrestling violence. This was the 4th time these two had wrestled, and every match prior had served a purpose. They turned a freak accident and one of the scariest endings to a Dynamite ever into the feud of the year. The second match in January of this year was fantastic, super underrated. It re-cemented Hanger as the man. But it never felt like the end. It still felt like they had room to grow out. And they did, as it would not stand for Mox, who fought him again in February in an even better, even more underrated match where Mox got his win back. But he didn't win that match as much as he survived it. Hanger was out-wrestling him constantly, even looking like he was about to take it over Mox, but the Dex Rider reversed the Bulldog choke he was in into a pin. It couldn't end that way. It was never going to end that way. It was always going to end in Texas death. This match type isn't for everyone. It's violent, chaotic, and extremely bloody. But it sure as hell is for me! I love this shit! They finally met at Revolution. Hangman entered the match feeling like the biggest deal possible with the Outlaws' fantastic cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky, and then immediately blitzing Moxley during his entrance. And the match just escalates from there. Barbed wire chairs, barbed wire boards, a barbed wire wrapped moonsault, a fucking fork, Jesus Christ, this made me wince, a brick, and the chain. My god, these sick fucks. Both men bleed buckets, both men crash through those aforementioned barbed wire boards, and it couldn't have ended any better with Adam living up to his moniker and literally hanging Jon Moxley, being the first man to ever tap Mox out. This made Page feel like the biggest deal he's ever been in AEW, and that includes when he was world champion. I love the direction his character has gone in since he took the Texas Death Match as a signature match. The Sheriff, the Executioner, the Hangman of AEW. They could have and should have followed up on this way better, but months later his feud with Swerve has put him back on the path I've wanted him to go on. And I know a lot of people prefer that blood feud and their Texas Death Match, and it's fucking fantastic, get me wrong. Barely missed out on my top 10. But me personally, I'm always going to prefer the tried and true, simple, effective, excellent story of two men just beating the piss out of each other because they both respect each other, but that respect turns to hatred over something to prove. Peak professional wrestling. Once again, my honorable mentions are a pseudo top 10 list, so here we go. The Blackpool Combat Club versus FTR and Mark Briscoe, Chris Brooks versus Saki Akai, Mizuki versus Maki Ito, Will Ospreay versus Tetsuya Naito, Miyu Watanabe versus Rika Tatsume, Aussie Open versus Bishamon, Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., Oedo Tai versus Queen's Quest, and Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega 1. And that is everything. Despite the complaining I've done in this video, pro wrestling is still, occasionally, my favorite thing on the planet. There is no better storytelling medium on earth, and through all the drama and the massive headaches, I'm still gonna keep watching it, because it still makes me really happy. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care of yourselves.